I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining.
Oh my god, I got bees. I got bees everywhere. They're all over my goddamn way. Oh, son of a... All right, take a seat, you little idiot. I was just complaining about the fact that I got bees, a ton of bees. For the second time since I moved into this house, there's a giant yellow jacket nest just built into my house, and then they're getting in every room of the house and apparently flooding my basement. I called a really nice bee guy to come out, and he was really nice. And so then he spent 5 hours getting rid of all the bees. But they're still in the walls and creeping out all over the place. So I keep seeing all these bees everywhere and I have to keep killing them. It's terrifying. But welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week we're going to continue reading Hellflower by George O. Smith. Want to learn a little bit about the author? Sure, I stole it from Wikipedia. George O. Smith, born April 9, 1911 and died May 27, 1981, was an American science fiction author. He's not to be confused with George H. Smith, another American science fiction author. Yeah. Cute little moment there in a Wikipedia article. Smith was an active contributor to astounding science fiction during the golden age of science fiction in the 1940s. His collaboration with the magazine's editor, John W. Campbell Jr., was interrupted when Campbell's first wife, Donna, left him in 1949 and married Smith. Smith stole a man's wife. Smith continued regularly publishing science fiction novels and stories until 1960. His output greatly diminished during the 1960s and 70s when he had a job that required his undivided attention. He was awarded the first Fandom Hall of Fame Award in 1980. He was a member of the all-male literary banqueting club, the Trapdoor Spiders. All male is never a good sign for any kind of club, which served as the basis of Isaac Asimov's fictional group of mystery solvers, the Black Widowers. I got time for the grandfather clock goes off telling me to shut up and start reading. So you want to hear some fun facts I stole from InterestingLiterature.com? Sure. Science fiction writer as Isaac Asimov, 1920-1992, is the only author to have published a book in 9 out of 10 Dewey Library categories. When asked what book he'd like to have with him in a desert, G.K. Chesterton replied, Thomas's Guide to Practical Shipbuilding. Oh, that's a fun little literary fact. Hugh Lofting, author of Dr. Dolittle, thought books should have a senile category to complement the juvenile section. Oh, these guys. Oh, that's fun. Dickens' house had a secret door in the form of a fake bookcase. The fake books included titles such as The Life of a Cat in 9 volumes. Oh, these guys. Playwright Joe Orton went to prison in 1962 for defacing library books. What? One of the cartoons he drew shows an elderly tattooed man in trunks. Okay. The first book bought on Amazon was called Fluid Concepts and Creative Analogies, Computer Models of the Fundamental Mechanisms of Thought. Okay, well, that's a good place to stop. The grandfather clock's telling me to shut up, so why don't we go down to the library and keep reading this book? Yeah, okay, there you are. Why don't you get settled here in the chair? You know, it's kind of getting October-ish out. It's kind of nice and cold. Why don't you take that little leg blanket that I saved for old people? Why don't you put that on your legs like an old person and sit here in my library while I read to you Chapter 5. Faradine took the Lancaster up and set the ship on its course to Terra. As soon as he could spare the time to think of anything but handling the ship, he began to wonder about Norma and Mike Cahill. She had not been visible when they arrived. But no doubt by now she had made her presence known. It bothered him a bit because he was certain, as a man can be, that Cahill was a Hellflower operator. And he did not want the man to get cold feet because Faradine was connected with an addict, even if for a short hop. As soon as he could leave the board, Faradine went down to the salon. They had met Norma for the first time in her trip with Faradine. It was presiding over the dining table. She was wearing a slinky sea green hostess gown, V'd down to about here, and slit on both sides to just below the knees, down to about here. Her white, bare legs twinkled as she walked. And almost forced the eye to follow them. All right, whatever. She was giving Cahill all the benefit of her physical beauty. And Cahill was enjoying it. Oh, Faradine had a hunch that Norma was about to start slipping him the old jealousy routine. Oh my God. He wondered about his reaction. He was extremely wary of Norma, but he did feel a sort of responsibility for her. She might make him jealous, but it would not be a jealousy of passion and desire, but jealous concern that stems from a desire to protect. This has all the problems of anything written in the 50s. Women are just supposed to be sexy. Apparently with twinkly legs. I've never heard that before. And then also the, I'm going to protect you because I'm some sort of male savior. I don't know. I don't want to get all PC or anything, but this is like really hard to read. Norma's lissom figure slipped out of the salon toward the galley. As she disappeared, Cahill wagged a forefinger at Faradine. That dame's a blank, he said in a very low voice. I know. She's not my woman, Cahill. By the way, she's blank because she's been the drugs given to her for sexual assault. This is not, but they're so casual about it. Oh, that woman's been drugged a lot for sexual assault. You can tell because she's like a zombie now. They're like, yeah, I know. No one's like, oh my God, she's been drugged for sexual assault. Jesus, this poor lady. No one's saying that. That's the part that probably bothers me the most about this. Maybe not, responded Cahill, but it sure looks like it from a distance. What are you doing with her? Delivering it to her parents in Denver. Is that all? Faradine nodded. She latched on to me and Ganymede. She's a dame that made the loud announcement of my being a Hellflower runner. Maybe she's right. If she isn't, I'm not. Cahill grinned. This much we know, he said. You do? Yes, but maybe she'll be right sooner or later. But get rid of her, see? Faradine nodded vigorously. I just imagine his head going up and down like crazy, with like a dumb smile on his face. That I'll do. She has been hell on high heels to have around. She looks like she might be fun. Oh my God. She hates my guts. Cahill nodded. Probably, but they usually end up in a case of anger and violence tough, but Norma came back with a tray and set food on the table. They ate in silence, with Norma still giving Cahill the full power of her charm. Cahill, who had undoubtedly seen many a Hellflower girl, which is an incredibly sad thing, still seems to enjoy her advances, although he accepted them with a calloused, self-assured smile. Once dinner was finished, Norma began to clear the table. This act annoyed Faradine because he could not account for it, and the only thing that seemed to fit in the case was the possibility that Norma was acting as she did to soften his wariness of her. But she was carrying the thing too far. He did not think that she was so unable to calculate. She must know this is how this act now pointed her in the form of disdain of any kind of cooperation. As she left again, Faradine turned to Cahill and asked, how can a man tell a love lotus from a gardenia? That takes experience, Faradine. You'll learn. The thing that stops me, said Faradine, is that the Sandmen have been trying to stamp things out for about 40 years, and they can't even tell where they come from. They'll never find out, said Cahill. Maybe you won't either. But better you shouldn't. Just enjoy living off the edges. It's safer that way. Remember that. Where are we going after we leave Denver? Well, I'm not so sure we're going anywhere. I'm not too sure of you, Faradine. You have some holes to fill in. Cahill lit a cigarette and leaned back, letting the smoke trickle through his nostrils. I don't mind talking to you this way because it would be your word against mine if you happen to be a Sandman. Some of your tale rings true. The rest sticks hard. For instance, well, let's suppose you are a Sandman. Humans are a hard-boiled lot, but somehow I can't see killing 33 people just to establish a bad reputation, so that tends to clear your book. As to the chance of you laying low for about 4 years until the mess blew over, I might buy that, except for the place. A guy who can ultimately turn up with enough oil to grease his way into an reinstated license and a late model Lancaster 81 isn't likely to spend 4 interim years. The burp living in a fungus field. Maybe I hit it rich. Cahill laughed roughly. Dug up a platinum-plated toadstool? Maybe I just met up with the right guy. Blackmail? Well, that's a nasty word, Cahill. Sure is. What did he do? Let's call it maligning. Let's say he played rough at the wrong time, and it might have to pay high for it at the present. Faraday looked at the ceiling, and maybe that isn't it. Cahill laughed. Have your way, Faraday. Well, tell me, do you have a layover at Denver, or is it better if we take off immediately for Mercury? Cinnabar or Hell City? Cinnabar, if it makes any difference. Mercury schmercury. That's a weird thing to say. I didn't know that there was anything there but the central heating plant. Isn't much, admitted Cahill, but enough. His voice trailed away as Norma's high heels came clicking up the circular stairway back toward the salon with her twinkling legs. I thought I'd have a cigarette and drink with company before I go to bed. She announced in a tone of voice that Faraday had not heard her use before. With gracious deftness, Norma made 3 highballs of White Star and water and handed 2 of them to the men. I could be wrong, but I thought White Star was like non-alcoholic, or is it just really weak? There's some reason why he keeps drinking White Star so he can hold on to control, but here she is giving them. What's with White Star? Maybe it's like White Claw today. It's like people drink White Claw because there's just nothing. She let her fingers linger over Faraday's very briefly, and over Cahill's longer. She lounged in a chair across from them, all curves and softness, with only that strange, disinterested look in her eyes to give her away. Faraday found this a bit too difficult to explain to himself. The evening had been a series of paradoxes. Norma's change from vixen to the lady of languid grace did not ring true. He had been aware of her ability to reason coldly, brought about by her burned-out emotional balance, which is so dulled that her thinking was mechanically unemotional and therefore inclined to be frightfully chilled logic. But Faraday's grasp of the problem was incomplete. Norma had claimed that she had knew the emotions by name and definition, that once she had felt them, but now she had only known about how they worked. Faraday found it hard to believe that she was so well schooled in her knowledge, and that she could put on the act of having them when she obviously did not. She did not even force herself upon them. When her cigarette and her drink were gone, Norma got up, excused herself, and quietly went below. Again, absolutely no sympathy for the woman that's been basically roofied for years. Me too, said Cahill. Well, that seems like a good place to take a break. Why don't we go downstairs to my basement and learn about the latest upcoming books from Penguin Random House? I'm coming. I'm here. You're already here. And you're already sitting in that folding chair underneath that naked light bulb while I stand here underneath this naked light bulb playing my guitar. Pretty good. Yeah, my basement's full of bees, but it's not weird down here. It's not weird to hang out in my basement. I got a really cool couch. I got a really cool tube television with like the big wooden thing and it's on the floor. Really nice console. I got the Google TV hooked up to it. I got a coffee table and a cute little rug. So this is a great place for people to hang out and smoke weed like that 1970s show. Why don't I let you know about the Penguin Book of Demons? Edited by Scott G. Bruce. Want to learn about it? Fine. 3,000 years of encounters with malevolent beings that have invaded our waking lives and our nightmares. It's a Penguin classic. For millennia, societies have told tales of their fears incarnate, otherworldly couriers of plague, death, temptation, and moral decline. The Penguin Book of Demons summons these supernatural creatures, and the humans have been haunted by them across cultures and continents. The demons, daemons, D-A-E, whatever, of ancient Greece and Rome, the giant biblical half-humans known as Nephilim, who stalked the earth before the Great Flood, corrupted angels, condemned to eternity in hell, the jinn of Islamic Arabia, the female child-eating Geleuds of Byzantium, the seductive incubi and succubi of Northern Europe, and the animal spirits of early modern China, and the cannibalistic Wendigo of Native American folklore. From demonic possession to black magic, these accounts give life to a spellbinding, skin-crawling history of the paranormal. For more than 75 years, Penguin has been the leading publisher of classic literature in the English-speaking world. With more than 2,000 titles, Penguin Classic represents the global bookshelf of the best works throughout history and across genres and disciplines. Readers trust the series to provide authoritative texts and enhanced by introductions and notes by distinguished scholars and contemporary authors, as well as up-to-date translations by award-winning translators. Really weird that last paragraph is just thrown in there to promote Penguin Random House. Apparently this author has also written a book called The Penguin Book of Hell. We got an author with a fetish. That's The Penguin Book of Demons, edited by Scott G. Bruce. You can get it for $18 coming out October 8th from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop Builder, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and you'll probably see a bunch of people protesting or lighting books on fire when they see this sitting on the shelves of Walmart. Well, with that, why don't we go back upstairs and finish reading this book?
Well, there you are. Welcome back from the basement. It's pretty fun down there. I know it's not weird. Why don't you take a little seat? Put the blanket around your legs, again, like an old person, and I am going to finish reading this book. Faradine led him down to a stateroom and then waved him in. See you in the morning, he said. Cahill nodded his good night, and Faradine went into his own room to think. He hadn't done bad. Of course, he did not really know how far some of Clevis's or other operators had gone, but Faradine had been on the trail for less than 100 hours and already had a lead. Obviously, the fact that Cimarilimonide was the tip-off. No Sandman would go that far to establish a shady reputation. Faradine was prepared to go as far as he had to. The idea of actually running Love Lotus was not appealing, but the Sand Office had been fighting the things for half a century, watching helplessly while moral fiber of the race was being undermined by nasty things, and somehow it was far better to let a few more lives be wrecked by Hellflowers than to save a few and to let the whole thing steamroll into monumental destruction. Faradine still had to duck a few people who might like to nail his hide to a barn door, but sooner or later he would come out on top of this mess, and then he would look his fellow man in the eye and ask him to forget one bad mistake. One bad mistake, killing 30-some people. That wasn't even Faradine's so far as he himself knew. Being on his first step eased his mind somewhat. Oh, he'd be rid of Norma in the morning and sometime on the way with Cahill. And the future looked interesting, if not cheerful. Oh, he went to bed easily for the first time since meeting with Norma on Ganymede. He dreamed a pleasant dream of freedom and success that ended with the bark of a pistol. Shocked out of his sleep, he lay stunned, blinking for a moment. Then he leapt out of bed and raced to the corner. Light blinded him first, but not enough to stop him from seeing Cahill. Cahill came running along the tiny corridor listlessly, blood dribbling from under his left arm, running down his fingers and splashing on the floor. On Cahill's face was a stunned expression, full of incomprehension, semi-blank. Blood ran down his leg, crossed his ankle, and left red footprints on the floor. Through the haze that clouded Cahill's eyes, he saw Faradine. He stumbled forward and reached out, but collapsed like a limp towel to stretch out at Faradine's feet like a tired baby. His voice sighed out in a dying moan that sounded like a rundown phonograph, and then the shocking rattle of death.
Steps behind him came Norma Hannon. Her eyes were blazing with an unholy, satisfied light, and her body was alive and sinuous. The hell? A tiny automatic dangled from her right hand. Her lips curled into a sneer as she came up to Cahill and poked at the dead man's hand with her bare foot. She started to cry in a strident tone, and then the semi-hysteria faded, and she looked down at Cahill again, relishing the idea. Faradine shuddered. Cahill probably had not been able to do more than just clutch at the deep neckline of Norma's nightgown. He leaned back against the wall and saw things in a sort of horrid slow motion. Under any normal circumstances, no jury in the solar system would have listened to an attempt to prosecute her. Under any normal circumstances, Faradine could bury Cahill at space. Bury him? You want just throw him out in the space? Is that called burying in space? And report the incident to the first landing. But Faradine couldn't stand too much investigation. Norma Hannon was a Hellflower addict, a, quote, blank, unquote, in Cahill's words. She couldn't bear investigation. Worst of all was the loss of Cahill. Why? Asked Faradine bitterly. Her eyes opened wide again as she relived the scene and relished the violence. Have your fun, gritted Faradine. I hoped it was you, she said. I wouldn't have killed you. Her voice was calm, and she might have been saying kiss instead of kill. Of course, why? Because he's got to keep sexualizing any woman that shows up in this book. It could be like a 90-year-old grandmother. Oh, look at her sparkling legs. God. Him I did not like. And you like me? You I saved to hate tomorrow, she said with a matter-of-fact flatness. Why'd you save him? What is he to you? He was my source. Source? Norma looked blank. Then, understanding crossed her face. Hell blossoms, she said with a sneer that twisted her face. She stepped past Cahill's body and handed the automatic to Faradine, who took it dumbly because it was proffered. She went on into the salon and sat down. Faradine wanted to hurt her, to reach through that wall and make her feel something besides anger. Well, earlier in this book, the author found a reason for him to beat the crap out of her and still make him the hero, so I don't know why he's prevented now from doing it. Source, he nodded, following her. Love Lotus. I'd have given you one, Norma. She made a sound like a bitter laugh. No good, Faradine. What good is one lotus? I don't know, he said simply. I never had one. Her laugh was shrill and insane. Then she bawled at him like a fishwife. All right, we're looking up fishwife. Thank God for the Kindle. A coarse-mannered woman who is prone to shouting. Okay. What an operator you are, you big fumbling boob. With your stolen spacer and your forged license, making like a big wind. Fa, F-A-H. Fa! Exclamation point. She got up and suddenly she sat back down. She paused on her way down the corridor to kick Cahill's leg. Faradine stayed where he was until he heard the door slam shut. He shouldn't be moved, thought Faradine. He found himself looking down on the dead man with a strangely detached feeling, as though he were watching a play. He relived the scene, although he tried to shut it out of his mind. Shutting out would not work, so he went through it detail by detail, minutely, from the sound of the pistol shot to the last dying groan from Cahill's throat. The memory of that dying wail jarred on Faradine's nerves. It was a discordant cry. He found himself making a completely useless analysis, itemizing things that surely would not matter. The cry had been a discord. His mind wandered a bit as he considered the word. A series of atonal notes did not make a discord. A discord comes when atonal notes are sounded at the same time. The former can be pleasant to the ear, the latter not. And then a chill hit him. Oh, it felt like a man who had just been told that he had one more question to answer before winning the prize at a quiz show. That's a great analogy. Cahill's moan had been a full discord. With a sudden disconnect of the mind, Faradine was back in the ceremonied, hearing the three voices behind him. They found one skeleton afterwards. Then his mind leaped to Brenner on Mars, who had emitted an approving grunt when he saw Norma come around the tail structure of the Lancaster with the sun shining through her skirt. That detail didn't need to be in there. He had no proof. No proof. Brenner's grunt had been no discord, but nonetheless a mingling of tones. Three voices? Maybe more? I really don't know where this is going. Maybe he was not sure of the first. Brenner's voice had been very brief. Maybe he was convincing himself, but Cahill's death cry was most certainly polytonal. I hate where this is going. I don't understand the discord with the multiple tones, and then polytone. Why? And then they were both lotus operators. It might mean something. Or it might not. Faraday put his head back and tried to hum and say something at the same time. Perhaps the stunt could be cultivated after much practice, and perhaps it was used as a password. More than anything, Faraday needed corroboration. It was a very weak read, but he stepped over Cahill's body and rapped on Norma's door. She opened the door after a moment and said, "Now what? Norma, you claim I owe you something. But I think you now owe me something." She made a scornful sound. "For killing your little chum out there? Maybe," he said as shortly as he knew how. "Go on, Faraday, but make it good." He looked down into her glazed eyes, hoping to see some flicker of expression that showed some interest in anything. "Norma, you've a good logical mind. Tell me, did you notice anything about Cahill's last cry?" "No, nothing odd. I've not seen men die very often. What was strange about it?" The eyes unglazed a bit, but Faraday could not tell whether this has awakened interest or merely the recapture of a feeling that she had enjoyed before. "Sounded to me like a discordant moan." "Yeah, it was discordant. Not the way I mean. It sounded to me like there were 3 or 4 tones, all going at once." Are they aliens that can do that? I don't understand. She snorted derisively. A diverse snort. That's got to be one hell of a snort. She snorted derisively, which has also got to be weird sounding. "Let me shoot you. I'll make a recording of your death cry, and then we'll see how you sing." "I'm serious. Stop beating that dead horse," she told him flatly. "It's the same chorus you used to sing about the 3 men in your control room, remember?" "Brenner made it sound like that too," he said. "A pig-like sound," she said scornfully. "Forget it, Faraday. You convinced nobody but yourself, and your evidence consists of one man surprised at the sight of a good-looking woman, and one man whose throat was coming apart in death. Forget it." She shut the door to her room, and in his face, abruptly. Faraday looked down at Cahill's body with regret. Not that Cahill's death touched him in any way, but a mild shock and distress at the loss of his link in the Hellblossom gang. A gunman and a Love Lotus operator was not likely to have his absence noticed among the kind of people who could afford to start asking a lot of questions of the officials. There might be fair chance that Cahill's disappearance would cause the same people to ask a question or two of Faraday. He would have liked to keep the body, but hauling a slain corpse, he did not consider it murder, into a doctor's office and asking for an autopsy on the throat could not be done, nor could Faraday do it himself. He could perform a fair job of setting a broken bone, and he could treat a burn or a cut, but he could not recognize a larynx if he saw it. And although he knew better intellectually, he instinctively considered a vocal cord as stretched string or some sort of vibrating in the airstream. Distastefully, Faraday hauled the body into the scuttle port and consigned it to space with a terse, "See you in hell, Cahill." Oh, so he buried it in space. Also, if you're walking around, we're almost at chapter 6. If you're walking around and you see people talking or making noises that sound like 3 different tones, that's not normal. How come that's not something you just kind of figure out way ahead of time? Like, how come you sound like you're going ooh in like 3 different tones? And they go, I don't know. You go look it up. I'm sure they got the internet and find out what the hell that is. He's just discovering it now. Like, oh, that guy made a noise I've heard before. I just never paid attention to. Chapter 6. The Lancaster came down at Denver. Before Faraday had the landing lamp out, a spaceport buggy came careening across the field to stop almost at the base of the ship. "Faraday," asked the man, "you're the Bennington Detective Agency man?" "Sidney Kingman." "Kingman, all right," said the other, showing a Faraday in a small case with identification card and license. "Where is she?" "Inside." Kingman handed Faraday an envelope. He pocketed it and led Kingman into the salon. Norma was there, sitting on the divan. Divan? Divan? I don't know what that is. Let's look it up. That is a long sofa without a back or arms, typically placed against a wall. So it's just a platform that's padded. Miss Hannon, Mr. Kingman. Another of your friends? She sneered. No, he's one of yours. I have no friends. Yes, you have, Miss Hannon. I have come to take you home. Norma leapt to her feet. Oh, you good-for-nothing bum, she screeched at Faradine. Why'd you do it? You wouldn't have left me alone, Norma, said Faradine softly, so I brought you home where they'll take care of you and keep you out of my hair. Well, I'll come after you, she raved. I'll get you for this. Not if I see you first, he told her. This is it. Not if I see you first? What does that mean? I'll come after you. Not if I see you first. I think he fucked that thing. I think he fucked that one up. Like, so not if I come after you. It's always like, not if I come after you. Whatever. Let's move on. I think he fucked up a little catchphrase. Why do you hurt everything you touch? She cried. Now who? Me. For the first time, Faradine saw tears of genuine sorrow. Oh, there was anger at him too, but remorse there was plenty. Why hurt my people? She asked. Why can't they just call me dead and let it go at that? I'm worse than dead. Then her face froze again, and she looked at King Man. All right, she said in a hard voice. Let's go and hurt my folks to death. Let's get it over with. You pair of money-grabbing ghouls. She started toward the space lock, waving her forefinger at King Man, who followed. Her face wore a coldly distant expression as she left the Lancaster. King Man's driver took them off. She did not turn back to look at Faradine. And that was that. Faradine retracted the ramp, closed the space lock, and not long afterwards hiked the ship into the sky and headed for Mercury. Well, there we go. That's the end of that. Why don't we go down to the smoking room and review what the hell we just read? Now, there you are. Why don't you take a little seat? And you see on the coffee table that baboon's skull? You can remove the top of its head, and you'll find inside that skull cigarettes. Christ, my wife's birds. What did we learn today? Not a whole lot more. Basically, he got the Cahill to be his first connection with the Lotus people, and then he got what's her name? She was trying to seduce everyone, and then the first person that was going to attack her, she'd kill him. So she killed Cahill because apparently he tried. There was a lot of descriptions of her that were weird. The twinkling legs, the V that goes to about here. None of these things are helpful and weird. But anyways, so then he drops her off in Denver, Colorado, and then he to King Man, and then that's it. That's kind of the end of it. So she's mad. She's like, I'm going to get you, and then I think he fucked up the phrase, I'm going to get you if I see you first, whatever. And then that was kind of it. Nothing really worthwhile happened here. I guess he moved forward the story by getting rid of her, which she's just going to come back later. I'm pretty sure of it. But did we get a lot of what the author thinks of people being taken advantage of. Especially sexually. Basically, doesn't give a crap. She's one of those dead. Just talking about, she's dead. Basically, like he's talking about someone who just smokes a lot of weed. They smoke a lot of weed and they're kind of like dull in the brain kind of thing. And it's like, well, no, there's sexual assault involved in that. It's like, like I said, dull in the brain. So weird. The way he describes one is weird. The way I don't know. I'm still trying to get through this book. I'm not ready to give up yet. I gave up on Peter Pan, but I'm not ready yet with this one. We'll see where it goes. So that's kind of it. Nothing really that exciting is worth reviewing. Just that authors in the 1950s were just, I don't know, classic people, the sexist people. You ever watch an episode of Dick Van Dyke? I have. I watched all of them. I went through a Dick Van Dyke period for some weird reason. There's a lot of scenes of Sally, the one woman in the writer's room, would come in and she'd be all dressed up, but they all treated her like one of the guys, which was a thing. And then her feelings were hurt. And she actually says, how come none of you actually compliment my legs? Someone compliment my legs. Which, that was the time they lived in back then. That was written into the show, and she didn't have a problem saying it, so that's just kind of the way the world was. So here's an author, a man of his times, just, treating women like that. Well, anyways, I got nothing else to add, nothing intelligent to say. So with that, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week.
Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just stay in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.